So I've been playing quite a bit of Croc lately. This is a game that I used to play all the time as a kid in the early 2000s. It's super bright and colorful and is one of my favorite platformers. Around a year ago is when the remastered version of the game came out. It had updated graphics, there was a lot of behind the scenes content. I purchased it and played through the whole game again casually, then did all the collectibles in order to 100% the game, which is something that I don't think I ever did as a kid. After 100%ing the game though, I really wasn't ready to be done with Croc yet. So I decided to make this game my very first speedrun game. That's actually the footage that you're watching right now. As I was speedrunning the game, I became very familiar with all the levels and couldn't help but just look around the world that I was constantly running through. I then decided to systematically go through each and every level in this game to just try and find the most interesting places. What I found is that there are actually quite a few areas that are pretty overlooked. I want to show you 10 different locations with a couple honorable mentions at the end that meet one of 3 requirements. One possibility why this location is in the video is simply because there's no real reason to go there. Another possibility for its inclusion is that it's difficult to get to or requires some kind of glitch to get there. And lastly, it might be on the list just because it has a cool vibe. It might be weird and eerie or just kind of a chill, relaxing place. The buzzword that people always want to use is liminal, but that's actually not the most accurate for the majority of these locations. To start off, I want to do something kind of simple that I'm sure a lot of people know about, but maybe not everyone. And that is we're going to take a look at one of the bonus areas. These bonus areas usually just contain a lot of hearts and maybe some crystals as well. Some of them are actually pretty easy to find. I think the easiest one that I can think of to find is just in World 1-3, where it's right behind the rock and that intro area. If you're playing the remastered version, there's actually a trophy for visiting each of these 10 different secret areas. There's also a clue in the name for how you get there. Still though, I think there's one bonus area that is way more obscure than the rest. That brings us to level 4-5. This is the one where you gotta wait around while the platforms descend and there's like these pirate guys. All you've got to do is go to the far platform that is still and then stomp or ground pound 3 times. So yeah, this is it. This is the bonus area for level 4-5. As you can see, there's kind of these long extended platforms with a bunch of crystals on them. Now, these jumps are actually pretty difficult. You sort of have to line it up just right and make sure you have good momentum going forward. As you can see here, I did not do that. Once you're done collecting all of the crystals and have made your way to the top, you can see there are 5 hearts up here. That's actually a pretty great number of hearts to collect. The only problem is you might lose some hearts getting up here in the first place. But I'd say if you got the skill, it's definitely worth checking this place out. The main difficulty is knowing that this bonus area is even here in the first place. Let's move on to somewhere a little more atmospheric. In case you didn't realize it already, we are now in level 2B2. This is the boss fight against Itzy. Now, leading up to the boss fight, you have to go through this dark corridor with a bunch of flying enemies. There's really no reason to stop here at all, whether casually or in a speedrun, and I think that's why this location is so interesting. You can't see where you're going, you can't see where you've come from. This video isn't really about liminal spaces, but this particular location actually would qualify as a liminal space. It is in between two places. We have one more location that doesn't require any glitches to get to, and it's in level 4-3. Now, most of you will remember this level as sort of the minigame dungeon. I don't mind some of the mini games, but I definitely like the memory one way more than the two where you have to jump from side to side to hit the sheep or collect the crystals. I'm not a huge fan of those. By the way, you can hop in the pot here and it's kind of funny. In order to get the most out of this level, you get to the end and you're faced with a decision. There are 3 different doors here. Now, the correct decision is to push this inflatable blobby guy over to the left, stomp on the pump a few times until kaboom. And in this room you get a Gobbo and some of the other colored crystals and a bunch of hearts. Great ending to the level. It wasn't until recently that I thought, oh, I wonder what's behind the other 2 doors. I also had the thought that maybe there's other people like me who succeeded the first time and so never really went back to see what was up with the other 2 doors. I'm just going to save you the trouble of the second option, which would be the door up top. There's nothing in there but a gong, and it's just the end of the level. The door on the right, however, is a different story. It is in this level that we find these 3 horrifying mechanical enemies. In case you're wondering, yes, this is the only level that these enemies appear in. For whatever reason, this room gives me the same impression of that room in Ocarina of Time where you get the sun song. These mechanical enemies remind me a lot of Redeads. Maybe it's just because they are kind of tall and they stand still and it's like a dungeony area. In the end, they're not nearly as creepy. I mean, you can take them out with one hit. But man, this sound is awful. Alright, so that's going to do it for the areas that don't require any glitches to get there. Let's head off to level 2-3. So in order to get to this area, I can go ahead and show you what a hover looks like. Basically, you jump and then tail swipe in the air and hit the jump button again. Until you've done it a few times, the timing is a little bit tricky, but it's really pretty simple once you've had some practice. The tricky part of this comes in the fact that there are actually 3 different hovers, a short, a medium, and a long. The hover that you get depends on which frame you hit it on. There's lots of other videos on YouTube explaining this more, so we don't really need to get into that. The simple fact is that hitting a long hover is harder than hitting a medium or a short, because if something requires a long hover, which a lot of places do in the speedrun of this game, it's more like a 1 frame trick rather than having a couple different frames to hit it on. There is one other factor to consider here, and that is diagonal movement. In this game, you can move diagonally using the D-pad, and this is actually faster than just holding straight forward. What makes this especially tough, though, is that sometimes you need to combine those hovers with the diagonal movement, which is exactly what we are going to do here in this new location. I think a couple reasons why I really appreciate this area is you can see sort of a bird's eye perspective of this entire part of the level. I also think you get a great view of the background and especially the sun over on the right side. This just seems like a great place to just chill out. There's not really a lot else you can do up here, although this is a great place to start showing you some of the out of bounds parts of this game. If you look down here, you can see that's the loading zone for the door. For a lot of these out of bounds areas, you can actually jump down and then hit the loading zone behind the door in order to go back into the previous area. It's actually something you can use to even skip locked doors, which is something that the any % run does at least one time. Also, if you happen to jump just right, you can do this. And I think this is really funny. Okay, let's go to the next level. We're actually going back to 4-5 for this next one, and this area is really simple to get to, but I think it's pretty cool. One of my favorite parts of being in this area is just watching the pirates spawn and fall to the earth below. I like to call this the fireworks zone. Unfortunately, if you try to jump down from here, it will just void you out, so I guess it's time to head on to the next location. Now, while I was working on this video, I was running around exploring different areas, and I encountered something a little bit insane. I gotta show you guys this. Somehow Croc went multiversal and managed to snag a Mario mushroom from Nintendo. He is probably about 10 times tall. Yeah, never mind, this is just a bit. Why don't we hop down from here? Something I was thinking about while exploring these different areas was, well, what if we went backwards? And while I was just kind of messing around, looking in directions you probably normally wouldn't, I stumbled upon this area. Why don't we just sit here a moment and see if you can hear the crickets? The best way I can describe this area is uncanny. It doesn't feel quite right, but at the same time, it's kind of captivating. I really enjoy just watching the lava slowly drift down the side. Being in World 1 has me all nostalgic, so why don't we go back to where it all started? This is level 1-1. There's actually quite a few levels in World 1 where you're able to hover to the edges of the level. To me, it's pretty remarkable how much of this area up top is actually solid geometry that you can walk around on. Most of these areas really don't have a lot beyond them. It's just a really cool thing to stand on top of, and that's about it. Except for the very first level. This feels like the ultimate place to hide some kind of super duper secret. Or if you've ever played Super Hot, there's like actual stuff out of bounds in that game. It's kind of one of the major things that you go, oh, this game is different. This is the only out of bounds area I've found that is like this, where there's just places to run around. And granted, it is very, very small, but you can run around down here. Anyway, I kind of wish there was like a Greg was here sign or something back here, just because I think it's so cool. So if your name is Greg, why don't you get on that for us, okay? One other interesting fact about this area is I thought I got soft locked and there's really no way out, but if you finagle it enough, you can actually fall down to the void over here. Ladies and gentlemen, that means we are down to our final 3 locations. These are the locations that I think are most interesting compared to all the rest. As you can see, I am being punished by Argonauts and have been banished to a dark platform surrounded by a thunderstorm. I think this is one of the coolest and most obscure locations we visited so far. If you do this the correct way, you can get here without a glitch, but this way just feels way more ominous. Let's leave Croc alone in the dark abyss. Actually, just hold on 1 second here, because I'm not so sure I'm ready to be done with level 3-5 yet. As it turns out, there is another location in this level that actually has pretty similar vibes, I would say, to this one I just showed you. I will readily admit this was one spot that I actually didn't know about while doing my own research in the game. This was one that I found while scouring the internet. But yeah, it's pretty simple. This third platform, for whatever reason, does not despawn. Because it doesn't despawn, you can just hop on and right off into the darkness. I feel like I should choose between these 2 locations, but there's a couple of caveats with this one that make me hesitant. For one, this is a location that I had 0 idea existed, and I kind of want to stick with locations that I found mostly on my own. My other qualm with this is that while this does seem like an endless ride, it actually is not. This platform lasts for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then eventually you will hit, I don't know what it's called, basically the outer boundaries of the world. When the platform hits that, it actually does finally do its despawn action. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, the viewer, as to which of these 2 locations you think should be the rightful number 3 spot. Let's see what the number 2 location is. This brings us to level 3-1. Even as a kid, I realized that you could kind of cheat this jump over here. Grab the key, head back up the platforms, and you're on your way. However, that's not what we're here to do. Earlier I mentioned that speedrunners can skip locked doors depending on where they're at. The one time this is used in the any percent category is in level 4-4. There is no wall on the side of the platform containing the locked door, and you can literally just hover around the door into the loading zone. There is one more area where this same type of glitch can be done. I think it might have taken me 7 or 8 tries. On speedrun.com, they do have individual level records, and this glitch is performed for this level on the aisle record. So we can use this glitch to skip the door and get to the end of the level faster. Only problem is, that's not the point of this video. What we're actually going to do is skip the door and then head straight back through it. As you can see, the door is still locked, and we are now permanently kicked out of this starting area. If you didn't know any better, it almost feels like a poor, sad crocodile is forced to watch his friends jump around the playground while he is stuck at home grounded. I just thought the concept of this area is pretty funny. We go through all that effort of skipping the door to go faster, only to turn around and try and go back into the starting area. Alright, we have one more location I want to show you, but before we get there, I'm going to go with a few honorable mentions. This first one you could debate whether it's even worth showing, but I just think it's really cool. It's not actually in the game. This is a developer test level that is shown in the Crocopedia on the remastered version. I really enjoyed looking at all these behind the scenes bits. From everything in the Crocopedia, this particular level I think is just really cool, in part because the music is kind of different. This entire level is just one big slide. As we are moseying our way down this slide, I just wanted to give a few different shout outs. First of all, I want to shout out the Croc Discord. If you'd like to meet other Croc-minded people, I really recommend joining that Discord. I joined it to get a lot of help with the speedrun side of things, but there's lots of other things to talk about there. I also want to give a shout out to Any Austin on YouTube. His videos are clearly a lot more well known, but he kind of does a lot of these similar videos of just finding unique places and spaces in video games. Lastly, I want to shout out you, the viewer. I want to know, what other cool places have you found in this game? One thing that I didn't really get a great chance to talk about was all of the secret levels in this game. Each world has 2 secret levels where you can collect a jigsaw piece. You unlock the secret levels by getting all 6 of the Gobbos in each of the previous 3 levels. Collect all the jigsaw pieces and you unlock an entirely new world. It's pretty epic. I couldn't go the whole video without at least acknowledging the secret levels, but let's just listen to this World 5 music because it's so eerie and almost unearthly. The one problem with this area is that there's an enemy actively trying to destroy me. In other words, it doesn't really fit the video because you're constantly running for your life. The reason that I really enjoy this level is that you spend the entire game collecting crystals, and finally you end in an area that is entirely one big crystal in the shape of a D-pad, but we can ignore that. This area is just super rewarding for doing all the collectibles, so I really recommend 100%ing the game, because otherwise you're missing out. Okay, we started this video off by talking about bonus areas, and so we're actually going to go back to World 1-1. As far as I'm aware, this was the very first secret I ever discovered in a video game. I think I was about 5 years old when I first played this game, and I do not remember how I discovered this area. I know we had the manual and maybe it was in there. We also had some family friends who played this game, and one of the kids in that family, we'll call him Niall. Niall was really good at this game, at least that's how it felt to me as a 5-year-old, because he had figured all this out. He had unlocked all this stuff. I don't know, maybe he was the cheat code, maybe he was just a genius at tank controls. Maybe one of my older siblings showed me this area, but I like to think that 5-year-old me just liked to jump around, and there was a bee trying to stomp on the bee. Oh no, suddenly I'm in a totally different area. What is this? This is amazing. I'm sure it was more or less something like that. That's enough reminiscing. I have one final area that I want to share with you, and I don't even know exactly how to describe this because it's not the most difficult to get to. It is somewhat out of the way. Getting to this location does require glitches, and you have no reason to be there at all. And trust me, it is a vibe. But I almost don't want to share it just because it feels special to me. And I know other people have probably been here before, but I just think it's probably the coolest place to be in Croc. Here it is. I don't really know what to call this area. I'm just gonna say it's my snowy oasis. It just feels so calm. There aren't any enemies. It just feels like a place where you would just kind of run around, almost like a water park or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like a weird wintry water park. I feel like this is the right area to end on. Maybe because it's not as difficult to get to as some of the other ones. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is an area that more people should be able to experience on their own. It's not super flashy, it's not super weird, it's just a nice place to be. When I think of playing Croc, I just am reminded of all these great memories I've had, and this is a nice place to reflect on them. Croc was probably not the first video game I ever played, but it was definitely one of the first that I played. Since then, it's been about 20-ish years. And in those 20 years, I've probably played, I don't even know how many other games. It's gotta be over 300 or 400. I just feel as though Croc is one of those games I play for a sense of optimism. Life kind of has its ups and downs, and this colorful and creative world is just a bit of reprieve from all those downs. I don't think there's a specific point I'm trying to make here other than just, I hope you come up here and reflect sometime. Don't worry, I'll save you a spot.